WBBM TV, Chicago. Now, Lester Holt, Linda MacLennan, Harry Folkman with AccuWeather, Corey McFerrin on sports, and the Channel 2 News team. This is Channel 2 News at 4:30.
Water from the Chicago River cascades into the basements of Chicago's Loop. A freak flood shuts down the financial and governmental nerve centers of the city. Thousands of bewildered people who just arrived at work have to turn around and head for home again. Good afternoon. Our top story, of course, flooding in the Loop as water from the Chicago River gushes through a hole and into the vast and antiquated web of tunnels under the Loop, bringing government and business to a halt. Here's where it starts. A whirlpool of water near the Kinzie Street Bridge, marking a hole near the river bottom 20 feet below. At least 9 buildings are flooded. The Board of Trade shuts down. City Hall can't function. Huge crowds of people from the flooded buildings jam commuter train stations as flooding stops the subways. Trains and buses fill to overflowing, and many commuters get left in the lurch.
There's been one bus that would go to my neighborhood, but I guess they've rerouted, so they gave me a transfer, and I've been standing here probably over half an hour. We're trying to get a short distance home.
Electrical service is cut from the river south to Adams and from Michigan west to Dearborn, the area in red on your screen. Service cuts are likely from the river south to Washington and from Franklin west to LaSalle and on the west bank of the river. The latest at this hour, crews are still trying to plug the leak with gravel, cement, mattresses, whatever works. Officials say there is no public health threat because of the flooding, and businesses and buildings in the Loop are being urged to beef up security tonight to guard against looting. On any normal day, it would almost be quitting time in Chicago right now. Workers about to flood out of their office buildings onto Loop streets for the commute home. This is the scene live from our helicopter right now as it hovers above the Loop, looking from the north, south. Just below, you can see the Merchandise Mart and the Kinzie Street Bridge on the right side of your screen, where all the action is. The heart of the city is almost deserted in the famous Loop. Flooding forces tens of thousands of people to get an early start on their trip home. Perhaps it's an indication of just how big a disruption and problem the flooding and power outages are for Chicago businesses and firms.
The problem, of course, is plugging the hole. But first, work crews had to find it. Not as easy as it sounds. This was the scene this morning at the Kinzie Street Bridge on the Chicago River. But look closely. There on the surface, swirling debris, twirling and spinning as it's being sucked downward to the bottom of the river. The pull is swift, the water's murky and dirty, too perilous for divers, making it virtually impossible to find the exact break point until sophisticated sonar is brought in to help. We're told that the hole is the size of a car. The problem? Plugging it.
We're putting sandbags, we're going to put mattresses, we're going to put everything possible, and they're going to start bringing trucks into here, and we're going to ask everybody to move about a half a block back.
Was there a leak that preceded this?
We don't know
Was
yet.
there a leak this morning?
No.
The tunnel is below the river level, so what's happening is the mud from the river bottom opened up and leaked into the tunnel. So we're hoping to push the stone on, seal the mud and everything, and cause to limit the flow. And then we will come along with this mat, and that'll act like a patch on a tire almost. So basically, it's a temporary measure until we can pump the tunnel down and work from the inside.
And so it begins, the shoveling and dumping of gravel into the water to form a base which will support the repair and stop up the leak. Trucks and tugs are pressed into service, so are barges carrying what look like concrete mattresses, also to be dropped in to plug up the hole. And standing by at the ready, concrete trucks with long feeder tubes to be plunged into the water and deliver quick-setting concrete to fix over the hole. But will it work? The only visible sign that it might be having an effect is on the surface of the water. The swirl of debris has slowed and it's now practically still. It's an encouraging sign. There are 3 main questions that we have to answer right now. How and when will workers patch the hole? How do we get the water out of the buildings? And when will people be able to go back to work? We're going to spend most of the next hour trying to answer those 3 questions in one way or another. Let's begin with Channel 2's Jay Levine, live from Kinzie and the Chicago River. Jay?
Linda, I can at least try to deal with the first question you had. When will they be able to patch the hole? Well, quitting time came early for so many thousands of workers in the Loop. Quitting time will be a lot later tonight for the people you see behind me. Workers from the Department of Sewers and Water and private contractors all brought in here early this morning. They've been on the job for 8 or 9 hours now trying to repair that hole in the tunnel, which appeared sometime after 7 a.m. this morning. Behind me, what you see are people on top of the pilings. They're working, positioning the pipe which will be carrying the concrete down into the water. Now this is exactly what they're trying to do. The surface of the water, the tunnel goes below the surface of the Chicago River. This is where the break was, on the bank. Right down below, they brought in the bulldozers. The bulldozers push the stone in over the tunnel, trying to repair the hole. But they can't make a perfect seal with simply those rocks. What they need is the cement as well. And that's what they're doing right now, positioning the pipe and putting the cement down in. For the past half hour or so, we've been seeing bulldozers putting materials into the cement mixer. And the truck that you can see now, if we widen out just a bit, you'll be able to see a truck that is backing up to the cement mixer up on the shore on the east bank of the Chicago River. That round truck, the tanker truck, will be putting more of the materials used to make the cement into the cement mixer. That's the procedure that's going on here now. We talked earlier with the executive of the company which provides the cement, distributes that brand of cement, the special quick setting cement here in the Chicago area, and he said that once they actually put that cement down in, he thought it would take about an hour for it to set. He thought that some of the water seeping down into the hole would actually help draw the cement in and seal up and make a firm bond, a firm seal to stop the water entirely. Other construction company executives who are also here on the scene say they're not depending on that alone to stop the leak and therefore the flow of water. They say they plan to come in and close off the section of tunnel, the damaged section of tunnel, driving pylons in to cut off both the east and sections east and west of the tunnel to try and cut off completely the section that is damaged. And so a two-pronged effort being in progress now. Whether it's successful or not still remains to be seen. Obviously, we'll be following it, and we suspect we'll be following it for a lot longer than we may feel. Linda, Bill, back to you.
Jay, thank you very much. The Metropolitan Water Reclamation District is considering drilling into its deep tunnel to drain the flooded freight tunnels under the loop. They're preparing to make an exploratory excavation at Jefferson and Murrow, where the two tunnels are close together. Our John Drummond is standing by there now. John?
Linda, as you pointed out, we are at Jefferson and Murrow. Right behind me is a 12-foot wide grate. You can see it. There's traffic here. Obviously, there's no construction going on. We have rush hour traffic going northbound on this street right now. Now, below that grate, that 12-foot wide grate, 12 feet below there, I should say 50 feet below there, is the old railroad tunnel, the old freight tunnel that we discussed this morning on our special report that was built back in the Spanish-American War. That's filled with all that water right now. Now, what officials with the Water Reclamation Organization have to decide if it will be feasible to go down there with a contractor and be able to drill like a 20-foot bulkhead, that much concrete, a concrete barrier, blast through there, and then the water could go into the deep tunnel project. And of course, the deep tunnel project can handle all sorts of extra water, and that, of course, would alleviate this flooding situation. The old deep tunnel, of course, was one of those that was called, I remember when they started work on it, as the 8th wonder of the world, one of the most controversial projects that we've ever had here in the Chicago area. In fact, the Deep Tunnel Project has been called the biggest public works project in America. It's been under construction since 1975, and when completed, which would be around 1993, Deep Tunnel will have a capacity of more than 14 billions of water at a cost of $3.8 million. Now, federal government has picked up about 75% of the cost of this $3.8 billion project, with the rest of the money, the other 25%, coming through various bond issues. Now, one thing I think we ought to bring out here, if indeed they begin this construction, this work down here tonight, and it's very likely that indeed they will, the people with the Water Reclamation Organization are saying, that district, they're saying it's going to take at least 2 days probably to get through that barrier to get this water into the Deep Tunnel project. This is not going to be a short-term situation by any means. And one of the things authorities are saying today that they want to do is that they're a little concerned about that water. There's not an immediate concern. This is not sewer water, by the way, but it is river water, and of course it could be somewhat poisonous or could cause some problems. That's one of the reasons they've got to get rid of this water one way or the other. Now, we're live right here, as I indicated, at Murrow and in Madison, or rather, as you were at Jefferson. Work obviously has not begun, but I suspect we'll be here later this evening giving you an update to see if they've actually begun work here. I'm John Drummond. Now back to our newsroom.
Thank you, John. We'll be checking with Nick Melas in just a moment to find out when they are going to start. But what caused the flood in the first place? City engineers say they've been so busy trying to solve the problem, they haven't had time to determine exactly how it happened. There are a couple of stories, perhaps construction accident that may have blasted into the old line down there that then dumps into the railroad tunnels, or it's even possible that there was a small leak created as long ago as 6 months that gradually widened until the flooding began. Mike Parker has been following the story all day at City Hall.
Somehow, some way, the city's labyrinth of old underground rail tunnels gave way at a point beneath the Chicago River at Kingsbury and Kinsey. Millions of gallons of river water began pouring into the tunnels, and where the tunnels had not been sealed off, into the basements and sub-basements of 9 major loop buildings. The flood damaged or threatened to damage crucial ComEd electrical equipment. How did it happen? Despite a number of briefings by city and state officials, we still don't have an answer. Mayor Daley seemed irritated the question was being asked.
We are not going to get into who is to blame, because we don't know as yet. That's why. That's why this is a very serious problem. Don't make it funny. Yes, you are. This is a very serious problem.
Fire Commissioner Raymond Orozco was put in charge of the city's disaster response.
The first step was to drop sand and stone into the area that has been damaged. That has slowed down the water somewhat.
Not only did the city have to deal with the flooding and the damage, it had to coordinate the evacuation of tens of thousands of people from the loop. That went well.
I want to commend the city for the job they have done. And I think getting on top of this, the state, since early today, has offered our assistance, and we have provided some help in the way of pumps and generators, and will continue to stand by to help in any way we can.
We were going to go live to Mike Parker at City Hall, but apparently the power has gone out and it left us high and dry.
Joining us now live is the president of the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, Nick Melas, a man who can help us understand how the flooding will be stopped and how the water will be diverted out of the basements of those buildings. Mr. Melas, your experts are meeting as we speak.
Right now, our engineers are meeting with the contractor that we just hired in the last couple of hours to take a look at the way in which we can make some kind of a connection between these railroad tunnels and the deep tunnel drop shaft, which happens to be in that vicinity. To give you an idea of what I'm talking about, I did bring along a chart, and I think that you can see that on this particular chart here,
this particular graphic that we are seeing is trying to plug the hole in the tunnel.
This graphic that's on the air now shows where this railroad tunnel is, and you can see it's about 35 or so of feet below the ground. But coincidentally, and underneath, much further down, 250 feet below, is the deep tunnel itself. Now, I would like to show this graphic to show you where that deep tunnel comes from. John Drummond said something about the controversial tunnel. I don't think it's controversial any longer. It certainly proved itself.
Yes, it has.
Wilmette is up here. The tunnel itself runs underneath the North Shore Channel, underneath the North Branch of the Chicago River, under the Chicago River, through the loop. This is Randolph Street approximately here, and then southwesterly down to Hodgkins, Illinois. That's a distance of 31 miles. Now, it is underneath the river itself. It's 250 to 300 feet down. And there are a number of drop shafts along the whole length of this that take the combined sewer overflow down. There are 625 separate drop shafts all along this whole system.
Is that what is at Jefferson Street?
Now, we have located one of these drop shafts. There are a number of them in the loop. And what I would like to show here on this particular graphic, this is a graphic that shows these black lines are the railroad freight tunnels that we're talking about. And here's the river running this way under here. Now, there is a drop shaft right here at Jefferson and Monroe. It's very close to one of these railroad tunnels. And what we're trying to do now is to explore the possibility of getting a connection between this railroad tunnel and into the drop shaft so that the water could drain down into the deep tunnel itself.
But that's going to take you a couple days.
It'll take some time. We're working, as I said earlier, the City of Chicago is the lead agency here. We're working in cooperation with them. We want to stay in touch with them as we're going along so that we don't do anything that would interfere with their efforts.
Water is your business.
After the hole is plugged up, you've got to get that water out of the basements and out, and the fastest way to do it is to utilize the fact that we have these drop shafts. They're there. Let the water go down the drop shaft and then down into the tunnel itself, and that way we can get it out of there as quickly as possible.
Well, thank you, Nick Melas. Let's start digging.